Hello everyone, welcome to your partner in education, Agile Rank Mate. Today, in this episode of VITEEE Workshop, we're going to be looking at a much demanded subject of VITEEE. Now, a lot of people have asked me to take up a video on biology, and it's true, biology is one of the subjects that will be encountered in the VITEEE exam. Now, when it comes to biology, you need to have a lot of static knowledge, and so therefore this video is extremely descriptive about the question itself and also about the various options that come in, whether the right or the wrong ones, and also to recognize which options are correct. So we'll be doing a lot of delving into each question, and we hope that it helps you out with your biology exams. Let's move on. The primitive prokaryotes responsible for the production of biogas from the dung of ruminant animals include methanogens, eubacteria, halophiles, thermoacidophiles. So let's look at each of the options. Option D says thermoacidophiles. The word phile, the suffix phile means in love with. So that means that the bacteria, which are known as thermoacidophiles, can survive in hot as well as acidic environments. So they're not responsible for production of biogas, so option D is incorrect. Similarly, if we look at halophiles, halo refers to salt, the prefix. So halophiles are bacteria which are present in extremely saline environments. So therefore option C is also incorrect. So let's look at eubacteria. Eubacteria is the subtype of bacteria which is considered to be true. So that means they're more developed kind of bacteria. And here the question is asking for primitive prokaryotes. So therefore option B, eubacteria, would also be incorrect. The correct answer is option A, methanogens. You could also arrive at the answer easily by looking at the question itself. It says primitive prokaryotes, so that means it has to be a part of archaebacteria. So that already limits your search down to methanogens, halophiles, and thermoacidophiles. And it says responsible for production of biogas. Biogas is mostly made out of CH4, which is methane, so therefore option A, methanogens, is the correct answer. Let's look at the next question. Which one of the following statements is wrong? Eubacteria are also called false bacteria. Phycomycetes are also called algal fungi. Cyanobacteria are also called blue-green algae. Golden algae are also called desmids. So, which of these statements is wrong? Remember, we have to find the wrong statement. That would be our correct option. Option D. Desmids, which are a particular kind of protozoan, are also called golden algae. This statement is true. So that makes option D incorrect. Now, what about option C? Cyanobacteria are also called blue-green algae. This is quite so everybody knows that cyanobacteria is called blue-green algae, so therefore this statement is true, which means that the option C is incorrect. Now, what about option B? Phycomycetes are also called algal fungi. Well, so phycomycetes are the least developed of the fungi, so therefore they are also called as algal fungi. So it's the groups of phycomycetes that ally themselves with fungi in order to form, that ally themselves with algae in order to form lichens. So therefore option B is true, which makes it incorrect. The incorrect option here, that means the incorrect statement here, is option A. Eubacteria are also called false bacteria. The prefix eu means true. So therefore, eubacteria are also called as true bacteria. The reason being that eubacteria are more advanced and more developed than archaebacteria, so therefore they are called true bacteria. So that's why this statement is false, and that makes this option, option A, the correct answer. Which of the following statements is wrong, especially for viroids? So we're looking at the statements given which are wrong with respect to viroids. So A, they cause infections. B, their RNA is of high molecular weight. C, they lack a protein coat. D, they're smaller than viruses. So let's look at each of the options. So A, they cause infections. This is true. Viroids do cause infections in some plants. So the statement is true, which makes the option incorrect. What about option D? They are smaller than viruses, which is again a true statement because viroids are subviral particles. So therefore, option D is incorrect because the statement is true. Option C, they lack a protein coat. This is once again true because viroids are exclusively made of RNA, just RNA only. There is no protein or fat coating over the RNA, so that means option C is incorrect because the statement is true. That makes option B as the correct option because the statement their RNA is of high molecular weight has to be incorrect. The fact is that for viroids, their RNA is of low molecular weight. And it has to be because viroids are actually smaller than viruses. So since you can use the relation that viroids are smaller than viruses, so therefore their molecular weight, the molecular weight of their DNA, of their RNA has to be lower. So that means option B is the correct option. Which one of the following is wrong for fungi? A, they're eukaryotic. B, all fungi possess a purely cellulosic cell wall. C, they're heterotrophic. D, they're both unicellular and multicellular. So we have 4 options. Let's examine each. Well, let's look at statement A. Option A says they are eukaryotic. And this statement is true because Monera is the only kingdom which contains prokaryotic organisms. So therefore fungi, all of the organisms in the category fungi in the kingdom, in the kingdom of fungi are eukaryotic. So option A is incorrect. What about option D? They are both unicellular and multicellular. We have unicellular algae such as yeast, and we have multicellular algae such as bread molds. So we have both unicellular fungi and multicellular fungi. So this statement is also true. That makes option D incorrect. What about option C? They are heterotrophic. This can be considered as true. Now, fungi eat, they consume dead and decaying matter. So therefore, they take sustenance from other organisms which are dead or have started decaying. So option C, they are heterotrophic, is also correct. The statement is true, so that means the option is false. That means the correct option is option B. All fungi possess a purely cellulosic cell wall. Now, this particular portion is incorrect because the cell wall of fungi is made up of chitin. Now, chitin is a polymer comprised of N-acetyl glucosamine monomers. So that is not cellulose because cellulose contains beta-rotated glucose. So that means option B is the wrong option. And here the question is asking for the wrong option, the wrong statement. So that means option B is correct. Next question. Methanogens belong to eubacteria, archaebacteria, dinoflagellates, slime molds. So what are methanogens? Methanogens are bacteria that produce the gas methane, and these are normally found in the guts of ruminants. So ruminants are those animals which chew their food after digesting it for some time in the stomach, and that process is called rumination. So methanogens are those kinds of bacteria which are usually considered as less developed, and so that means the correct category to which methanogens belong to is option B, archaebacteria. The archaebacteria contains the poorly developed bacteria such as halophiles, thermoacidophiles, and methanogens, and the other kind of bacteria, which is called true bacteria, is eubacteria. So option A is incorrect because methanogens belong to archaebacteria and not eubacteria. And an example for eubacteria is the parasite Salmonella typhi. So that bacterium is a eubacteria which is pathogenic. Now, what about option C and D? Option C is dinoflagellates. Option D is slime molds. Both of these belong to the kingdom Protista. So here we're referring to methanogens, which are a type of bacteria. Bacteria belongs to the kingdom Monera. So that means option C and D are incorrect. Here again, we have to select the wrong statement. Now, all of these statements are about diatoms. Diatoms are a group of creatures which belong to the kingdom Protista. Now, option A says the walls of diatoms are easily destructible. Option B says diatomaceous earth is formed by the cell walls of diatoms. Option C says diatoms are chief producers in the oceans. Option D says diatoms are microscopic and float passively in the water. So, what do we know about diatoms? Well, number one, they belong to the kingdom Protista. So Protista contains mostly unicellular organisms which are eukaryotic. So that means option D, diatoms are microscopic and float passively in the water, is true. So that makes this option incorrect. Another thing that we know about diatoms is that they are chief producers. They are present in the ocean, and they are producers in the ocean. So therefore, option C is also true, which makes the option incorrect. Remember, we're looking for the wrong statement. Another interesting fact about diatoms is that they have cell walls made of silica. So that means we can find silica present in what we call diatomaceous earth. So that means the cell walls of diatoms, they drop to the bottom of the ocean once the diatom dies, and then they form diatomaceous earth. So diatomaceous earth is formed by the cell walls of diatoms is again a true statement, so that makes it incorrect. The only wrong statement in this set of statements is option A. The walls of diatoms are easily destructible. Actually, since the walls of diatoms are made of silica, they are actually hard to destroy. And that's why we still find diatomaceous earth made up of the cell walls of diatoms. So therefore, option A is a false statement, and that's why that statement is the correct answer. You just need to identify the definition of gift, G-I-F-T. Is it A, B, C, or D? Let's look at each of our options, but before that, we should know what does gift stands for. The expansion of gift in reproductive health is gamete intrafallopian transfer. So now let's look at each of our each of our options. First option says transfer of sperm in fallopian tube of a female with the help of injections. So here the male gamete is transferred into the fallopian tube with the help of injections. So since this is done with the help of injections, this is what we call ICSI, or intracytoplasmic sperm injection. So option A is incorrect because it's the definition for ICSI. If you look at option B, it says transfer of a zygote fertilized in vitro in the fallopian tube of female incapable to conceive. So here you see that a zygote is transferred and not a gamete. So option B is incorrect, and this definition is the correct one for ZIFT, which is zygote intrafallopian transfer. Now let's look at option D. Embryo is developed in vitro and then transferred into the female tract. So in vitro basically means that fertilization happened outside the body, which happens during in vitro fertilization or IVF treatments. So option D is the definition for IVF, so it's incorrect. The right answer is option C, transfer of an ovum collected from a donor into another female's fallopian tube who can produce an ovum but can provide a good environment for further development. This is the correct definition for GIFT, which is gamete intrafallopian transfer. What is the function of copper T? Well, the copper T is basically an IUD, which is intrauterine device. And the speciality about copper T, as the name suggests, is the fact that it is a copper releasing device. And when an IUD is copper releasing, it releases copper ions which help in the increase in phagocytosis. So when the sperms get into the uterus, what happens is that this IUD, it produces copper ions, and these copper ions increase phagocytosis in the uterus. This means they suppress sperm motility and fertilizing capacity. So basically, if the sperms are killed in the uterus, then there is no fertilization. So therefore, the right answer is option B, stops fertilization. Here, since the gamete gets affected before the onset of fertilization and zygote formation, option B, stops fertilization, is the most appropriate. Progestasert and LNG20 are A, implants, B, copper-releasing IUDs, C, non-medicated IUDs, D, hormone-releasing IUDs. If you look at option C, non-medicated IUDs, an example for this includes Lippes loop. Copper-releasing IUD, example is copper T. And when you look at implants, these are basically hormones which are primarily made up of estrogen and progesterone. They're synthetic forms of it, and they are implanted directly under the skin. So the right answer here is option D, hormone-releasing IUDs. Progestasert and LNG20 are examples of hormone-releasing intrauterine devices. So these are devices inserted by doctors and expert nurses, and then they are presently available as non-medicated, copper-releasing, and hormone-releasing. So this is an excerpt from the NCERT textbook for the chapter Reproductive Health. This is page number 60. And here you can see hormone-releasing IUDs. Examples given are Progestasert and LNG20. So that's why we can say that option D, hormone-releasing IUDs, is the correct answer. What is the figure given below showing in particular? This is our figure. So as you can see, this is a figure of the female reproductive system. You can see ovaries, you can see part of the uterus, and you can see the fallopian tube. But if you look at the fallopian tube, you can see that both tubes are cut and tied. So as you can see, the tube is cut and then it's tied. So when the fallopian tube gets cut and tied, then the procedure is called tubectomy. So option C, tubectomy, is the correct answer. Option D, vasectomy, happens in the male reproductive system. And since over here there is no abnormalities in the uterus or the ovary, ovarian cancer and uterine cancer are incorrect options. So the right option here is option C, tubectomy, and you can guess that by the tied and cut fallopian tubes shown here. Let's look at this question. Here we're asked to match column 1 with column 2. So column 1 says pill, condom, vasectomy, copper T. Column 2 says prevents sperms from reaching cervix, prevents implantation, prevents ovulation, semen contains no sperms. So over here, you need to find out which of the following options given is correct by matching it up. So when it comes to matching type questions, sometimes you only need to match one thing here in order to correctly guess your option. And in this question, that is possible. Now, if you look at option C, vasectomy, what is vasectomy? Vasectomy is the cutting and tying of the vas deferens in the male reproductive system. So that means it does not allow sperms to be released. And so therefore, since the glands come after the vas deferens, the semen that gets released contains no sperms. So C4 is a correct match. And if C4 is a correct match, and if you look at our following options, you can see that option A is the only option which says that C of column 1 matches with 4 of column 2. So option A is the correct option. And if you look at the others, pill prevents ovulation, that's correct. B prevents sperms reaching the cervix, that is also correct. And copper T prevents implantation, which is also correct. This is again a match type question. You have to match column 1 with column 2 and find out the correct option among these 4. So in this question, again, we can connect back to the first question of this episode. In the first question, we were asked to find out the definition of GIFT, gift. So GIFT is the transfer of ovum collected from a donor into the fallopian tube where the fertilization occurs. So D of column 1 matches with 2 of column 2. So therefore, based on our previous question, D2 is the correct matchup. And if you look at our given options, you can see that D2 occurs only in one of the 4 options, which is option D. So option D here is the correct option. Now let's look at the other parts of this option. First, A is connected to 3, so intracytoplasmic sperm injection, which is formation of embryo by directly injecting sperm into the ... So that is correct. If you look at the second one, that is IUI, intrauterine injection, so that is artificial introduction, so option 1 is correct for this one. If you look at IUT, that is option C, it matches up with 5, which is again correct, and ZIFT matches with 4, which is also correct. So the correct option here is option D, A3, B1, C5, D2, and E4. So that concludes this episode of VITEEE Biology. We hope you found this episode interesting. For more of our useful and interesting content, don't forget to subscribe to Agile Rankmate, your partner in education. If you want to get the latest updates from VITEEE Biology or other subjects from VITEEE or other exams, then please don't forget to hit the notifications icon that's present below the video. Anyway, that's all for today, folks. Until the next webisode, take care, stay alert, bye-bye for now.